Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another tabletop live stream with the Yellow Belly channel. So, hope we all had a good week or fortnight. Christ, it's been forever.
It's been a while.
I've grown old since I was last on the internet.
Well, that and sick and tired of me.
No, I was sick and tired of you before we went on the internet, mate. Just to clarify that. Let's start with the opening salvo. I'm not sure if I'm a bit loud now. Actually, I've done that.
Are we broadsiding, sir?
Yeah. So we'll start. I am going to turn me down. Jesus, I do apologise for everybody's ears at home.
You deafening the home crew.
Yeah, we did try to tweak Banana and get it
tweaked it too much.
Yeah, it looks like it's a bit over tweaked the way it's clipping the old red, and I'm screaming my lungs out. Must make sure not to cough. Yes, so we may or may not be doing much hobby tonight, but just in case we do,
I was about to say, speak for yourself. I'm planning on getting a Zenithal down on some minis.
Okay, fine.
The one-upmanship is real.
So what I will do, I had a bit of a lax. I had a failure of motivation due to UK Games Expo. So I didn't manage to get my entry for our club's painting competition in this month. So I still need to finish them. I'm just going to adjust the lighting here. Actually, I'm going to need to do more than adjust the lighting because my miniature camera is no longer working. Right, now it's working.
Yay.
Oh, for God's
nice
sake.
To see. We take a 2-week break and we still have technical difficulties.
Yes. Everything is back to normal with a capital N.
Speaking of which, we did try and record some stuff while we were at Expo, but we had a complete and utter nightmare.
Yes, we'll discuss that in a bit. So, just in case the opportunity to do some hobby comes up, this is what I'm trying to finish. I did cover these in our last live stream for anybody who's interested. These are some 3D prints that David did for me that I'm going to run as HVTs for my JSA army. Got to press transition. For my JSA army in Infinity. So I described them as cops in that video. I was wrong. These are actually Yakuza, which is like Japanese mafia, but they'll work.
One and the same, really, isn't it?
I mean, essentially they look pseudo-civilian, which is the whole point of a HVT. It's a non-combatant model that you
throw down.
Just throw down as an objective marker, effectively.
The trousers on that are looking gorgeous, dude.
Just speed paint over a Zenithal, mate. No tricks, nothing. No blending. Literally,
nothing
army painter speed paint over a raw Zenithal. No skill involved. What I'm just doing is taking up the skin tone. I'm going to go up one level higher. Then I want to finish putting some highlights on the guns, the weapons.
Are you highlighting that red jacket anymore, or are you leaving it at that?
No, leaving it as it is. Leaving it as it is.
Very nice.
But, I mean, it's got some good definition on it already. These speed paints are... The only thing that doesn't really have any definition is the waistcoat, because I think I must have caught it full on with the Zenithal spray on his chest.
Yeah.
And because he's leaning ever so slightly back, it's caught the whole thing full on. So... If I get chance to pick up a paintbrush, that's what I'll be doing. What about you, mate?
Right, well, if we turn my camera on and we can go down to the desktop now.
Right, I shall get you mini-cammed up. Here we go. So David's on mini-cam.
I went to UK Games Expo and I bought God Tier. So I bought the starter set for God Tier, and I bought. Actually, let's leave those because they fit into Paul. So in the starter set, you get I think they're 54mm sculpts. So this is Naya. She's like a dwarf. And Naya comes with these little mini, I think they're called quartzlings. Like little men made from rocks.
So like little golem things.
And then you get an objective marker, which is like a really cool geode. So that's one half of the starter set. Next half of the starter set is Morrigan. I've got to zoom out for this because Morrigan's a big boy. Who I do believe is a lich. And then he has some followers, which are all like little skelly boys. And then their objective is like this crystal shard that's wreathed in flame and skulls. So that's the starter set from God Tier. And as part of the UK Games Expo deal, they had a extra championship set included. So, seeing as Paul likes goblins and Paul likes Japanese samurai...
Yeah, very much into anything Japanese, frankly.
We went for Jean, who is a gorgeous mini, even though she's a bit overexposed and yellow at the moment.
So, goblin tick, cool samurai tick.
Jean comes with all these little followers. So there's like a two-handed blade, like a katana blade on a pole, proper katana. There's all sorts. And then in the banner set, we have the goblin mask on a little stanchion with some flags. Now, admittedly, that's quite a chunky flag, but we're going to put some primer down tonight.
Because all of the God Tier stuff is released in the same format, isn't it? You get a champion or hero mini, whatever it's called.
And it's 54mm, and then you get followers, and I think they're sculpted at 32mm.
Okay, and the numbers vary, but the format's the same. And then everybody gets one of those objective tokens, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, because that's part of the core game mechanic.
Smallest God Tier warband is 2 minis.
Wow.
Yeah, but they're quite powerful. And then
obviously the minion's mega chonk, is he?
Yeah, so we have Morrigan at 54, and then these are at 32, I believe.
Yeah.
Same over here, same format over here.
Okay, cool.
So that's my plan for tonight.
So you're planning to just get some primer on those, basically?
Yeah, and then if I boss that out and get a primer and a zenithal on them, we're going to go for something that we're going to talk about tonight, so I'm not going to spoil the surprise.
Oh, okay. So, let's go back to the main scene. So that's our hobby for the evening. Now, obviously, last week was no live stream because we were at Games Expo.
Yep.
And we will. So we'll be talking about. What we're going to do is probably just, rather than sort of do a whole show dedicated to everything we did at Expo, which is going to be a huge amount of stuff, we're just going to sort of pick things over the next few weeks. So we're going to deliver our UK Games Expo experience to you in dribs and drabs.
Bite-sized chunks.
Bite-sized chunks, yes. Yeah, we're going to obviously give you one of the things that we did at Expo. And the other thing we're going to do, the main topic for tonight, as I mentioned on our social media, actually one of the things at Expo was David decided he was definitely going to tackle a new game. And
it was hard to restrain myself to one, let's be brutally honest.
I did have to bring you back down, didn't I? But what we're going to do is we're just going to run through almost the whole thought process and what David went through, certainly over the 2 or 3 days, trying to decide exactly where to put his money. and sort of like discuss that as a general topic because we're in a very good place as wargamers at the moment, with the market being flooded with some great war games. And
there is a lot of choice.
There is.
So many ways you can go with it to make your mind up.
Yeah, and because of that, it's more it's more difficult than it's ever been, I would say. I don't know. You comment down below if you disagree, of course. But I would say it's harder than it's ever been to make that decision on where to spend your hobby and gaming dollar.
How to spend your hobby dollar.
It's a very crowded marketplace, which is good. You know, to say that there are so many games on the market that are really worth playing and collecting and painting and all the other stuff that goes with it. It's not a bad place to be, and it'd be churlish to say it was.
I know buying minis kind of goes against what we were saying in our live stream just before we went away to Expo as well, of where do we spend our hobby dollar? Let's not spend it on miniatures and stuff, but I kind of had to.
Well,
I didn't really have a choice because it's that thing of I'm a hobby magpie and I enjoy playing about 15 different gaming systems.
Just to come in there, I don't think the message that we were looking for or what we were trying to say
it wasn't don't buy miniatures.
Never buy another game again. If you've got one game to play, don't be greedy and don't be stupid. That was not what we were saying.
I know. I was kind of
trying to be a bit hyperbolic there. I mean, what we were very much saying was, it's not all, it's not all that. That's not the only cake on the stall, is it?
No.
Let's be fair.
You have choices.
Yeah. And sometimes it might be nice to, maybe get some double cream to pour on your gatto instead of ordering another slice of gatto.
Yeah.
Does that seem, that's more what we were trying to say, wasn't it?
Yeah. Or again, you don't just have a meal with without all the extras and the sides. Having all those sides and extras actually makes the meal.
Yeah, order some fries with your steak. Don't just have two steaks piled on top of each other, because you're going
to look like a murderer.
You're going to look like some sort of werewolf trying to conceal your identity. Or I don't do carbs. So yeah, that's what we'll be doing tonight. So mate, shall we as we do some painting, shall we discuss what we did on club night? So do you want to go first? What did you do on Monday down the gaming club?
It was Dan got married on Tuesday, so Dan said to me,
I saw that post in the Discord.
Yeah, Dan got married.
He kept that quiet. I didn't even know he was getting married.
So long story short, the week before Expo, he'd said to me about playing a cooperative game as like a kind of a stag do kind of thing. I'm like, yeah, no, that's fine. And sort of said to him, well, what do you want? Do you want Gaslands? Do you want League of Infamy? What do you fancy? And he says, well, you guys were absolutely raving about League of Infamy. Let's play some League. So that's what we did. We played League. We amazingly, I've just run out of paint, I think. No, I haven't. We've got 2 games in an evening, which is shock horror.
Two full sort of like missions of League of Infamy, did you?
Yeah, in an evening. The main reason we got 2 games in is because Muggins here, as the DM, decided not to read the rules before starting the game. And in game 1, Ricky decided to piss off early with the objective. Well, when Ricky pisses off early with the objective, guess what happens? The portal's only open for a round, so everybody else on the table, rather than get subdued and absolutely messed up, decided to leave with him.
Right.
So game 1 was over in a heartbeat. Game 2, on the other hand, game 2 dragged, and I also, again, having not learnt my mistake from round 1, still decided not to read the rules. And the
David,
lads were trapped in a safe room and were trying to escape. And then I suddenly realised about 5 minutes before the club session ends oh shit, they can't escape from this room. Sorry, DM's overruling that rule, and you are escaping because you've just spent the past 15 minutes fighting to get here. So, yeah.
Oh, right, okay, whoops.
Yeah, whoops.
Could you have telegraphed? Could that have gone smoother? Was there a way for them to know that they were getting themselves into a cul-de-sac?
I mean, I telegraphed, bless Ricky. There was a safe door that they had to go to a magical pedestal and mess the pedestal up before the magical door will open.
Right.
I telegraphed to Ricky after the first time of him trying to unlock the door it forced your lockpicks out of the door and glowed, i.e. it's magical, don't try that shit again.
Okay.
Ricky then spends his 3 actions the next round trying to do it while the other lads are fighting round to where they need to get to. And Ricky went to try it a third time. Like a third round of 3 actions doing it. I said to him, look, mate, I'm not letting you waste your actions a third time. It's a magical door. You need to get to the pedestal.
Okay.
So.
Sometimes things like that are sort of like speed bumps, aren't they? Where stuff isn't...
They're hindrances in the road.
Stuff isn't necessarily clearly... telegraphed to the players.
League is just as bad as Dungeon Saga for scenarios and shit that gets hidden.
Right. Okay.
But then that might just be my laziness as a DM of rocking up to a session and going, let's play it by the seat of my pants.
It's funny actually because we certainly said about Dungeon Saga that it didn't as closely mirror the role playing experience as we were expecting. That is one element where there is some commonality, which is preparation. If you do not familiarise yourself with what's the mission, what's the objectives, do you know what I mean? You can get into that situation where it's like, oh shit, yeah, that should have happened, or that doesn't happen, or...
Well, again, like Dungeon Saga, there's a little bit of a briefing to read to your players before the game.
Yeah.
And the briefing's obviously done in a slapdash sort of, as if it was being done IRL kind of way.
Right.
But they say about the fact that there's a teleport spell to get out, but not the actual mechanics of getting out, or where you can use this teleport spell.
Okay. So
it's like I kind of want it as a role-playing experience for the lads, even though it isn't necessarily intended as a role-playing game.
Yeah.
Just because it's quite fun to play it in that style.
Yeah.
But it's irritating too.
Right.
When it's not done the same way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Making it blatantly obvious. So yeah, that was my Monday night at club.
Okay.
What about you, Arkham?
No, actually, we had a little bit of an upset. One of the regulars was not able to make it for Arkham. So, although we'd got Arkham planned and I sort of like got all my cards prepared for the session and made sure everything was ready for a fast deploy, because that's one thing I will say about Arkham Horror card game. The actual setup can be fiddly, because you have to build an encounter deck, and there's a key card that says for this mission you will need expansion, you'll need the Swarm expansion, you will need the Beyond the Veil expansion, you will need, and you have to gather all these cards together. So what I tend to do is do all that crap the day before and then just drop it between a couple of dividers in my collection box, so that when we get the table set up, it's just like bang, there's the encounter deck, just set up the locations, and you can save 15-20 minutes, which when you're on club time can be crucial. So I did all that.
You only have to look how long it took us to set up the Arkham Horror board game on Saturday night.
Yeah, it's a very similar thing, mate. I think the problem with the board game is there's no way to prepare your way out of it, really. I suppose you could prepare the missions more. You could prepare the creatures. That's about the only thing you could do. Prepare your creature deck in advance. Everything else is just on the fly with that game. But anyway, so I did all the prep, and then unfortunately Natalie posted to the group, sorry guys, can't make it tonight, because her hubby, I think, had to be away for work, and they've got a little one, so she was on babysitting. So what I said to Daniel, who's the other player, what should we do? What's plan B? And Daniel has mentioned and has got a board game with a Star Wars theme. He's got Outer Rim, which some people might know. And I
For
fancied,
those that are not in the know,
I fancied that. Essentially, what it is you can play as, basically you play as a Han Solo style character, a captain of a ship, and you can take on the role of smuggling or transporting cargo, smuggling illegal contraband, and collecting bounties. And you can, so you can do the smuggler stroke bounty hunter thing, and you can pretty much mix and match what you want to do. Obviously, you pick your captains at random, and then you get your starting spaceship. And some captains are better at one thing, some are better at the other, and some don't really care. They can flex in either direction.
Yeah.
And so that's the idea. You basically, the board is a weird sort of like semicircle, and you hop around these planets picking up jobs, which are either cargo or bounties. You can earn cash to then upgrade your ship, hire crew, encounter random people on the planets, etc. And it's basically, as you do, so like if you smuggle illegal goods or if you capture bounties or kill bounties, you get fame, and then it's first one to X fame wins. So we played the basic level introductory, first to 10 wins the game.
Okay.
But and it's the thing that surprised me about it. I was expecting it to be quite a sterile board gaming experience, but actually there's quite a lot of room for real role play and storytelling.
Shit that's going on like that. Yeah.
So like, just my game played out like this. We picked our captains at random. I picked Boba Fett. So obviously straight away I was like, I'm gonna go bounty hunting. Fuck the cargo. Fuck the smuggling. It's just bounty hunting all the way.
It's all bounty.
Yeah, and the first two. Well, the first bounty I picked was I can't remember the guy's name, but he's Lando Calrissian's left-hand man on Bespin, the guy with the sort of like cybernetic earpiece thing, his communications guy, and I X'd him. The next two bounties that I pulled from the bounty pile were Forlom and Greedo. So for people who don't know, they are sort of like Huttite or bounty hunter characters in their own regard. So when it came to hunting them down for the bounty, you can actually choose to cash the bounty in or recruit them to your crew. So rather than hunt them for their bounty, I added Forlom and Greedo to my crew, both of which increased my combat output so that I could chase bigger bounties.
Yeah.
And the next bounty I went for was Chewbacca.
Ooh.
So, and do you see how just by pulling random cards,
you've got a bit of a story going?
Yeah, so the story developed that basically Boba Fett took this took this easy target, then he goes to chase down these others, but ends up bringing them onto his crew. Then they all three go down and hunt Chewbacca, so I Chewbacca for loads of fame and cash. Then, because I had a pretty good game, because I don't know, there was an element of luck. I didn't fail any of my dice rolls because at the crucial point where you fight your bounty target, obviously there's a chance you can fail. But I succeeded them all, and I was getting ahead, and it got to the point where, well, that's all right. To win, all I've got to do is cash in my 2 original bounties for my crewmen. So basically,
oh my god, you just murdered your own crewmen.
Pretty much.
You dark motherfucker.
So then Boba Fett just flew to Tatooine, shot Forlom in the back of the head, and went to Jabba Hutt. There you go. And I was like, I win. Just by being a ruthless psychopath. So, as you can probably tell, I fucking love the game. If you get a chance to play it, mate, play it.
Play it, yeah.
Yep. I mean, Daniel, who owned the game, him and his mate have played it to death and back again. And he did say the only criticism he would make of the game is that the decks of cards that form the upgrades you draw, the bounties you can take, the cargo jobs, those decks are quite small. So
yeah, so there's an element of repeatability.
Exactly. After about 10 to 12 playthroughs, he was like, I've seen everything. I've done everything twice. It's all starting to get a bit samey. But apparently, he said to me, look out for the expansion for me while you're at UK Games Expo. But sadly, it wasn't out. It's due out end of this week, I believe.
Yeah.
And apparently it more than doubles all of those decks.
Ooh.
So it's going to sort of like exponential replayability straight away.
Yeah.
With extra captains, extra ships, extra missions, extra bounties. And I think there's even a side mechanic like alternative win conditions as well. So you're not just chasing fame.
Yeah.
So it sounds very cool, and he will obviously be definitely getting it.
Yeah, because he likes the game.
Yep. So I'll probably have a chance to play it, and I can let you know if it's any good. But yeah, so that was my club night.
Fair enough. Nice to hear you playing something a little different. I know it wasn't necessarily intentional, but it's nice to just break up the monotony occasionally.
Yes,
and I know you love Arkham, but Arkham goes one of two ways.
Yeah, well, most of the time it goes the bad way, doesn't it? But it's like I have said, it is a fair criticism to be levelled at Arkham Horror, the card game, certainly, that all of the, once you start a story path, you are committing yourself.
Yeah, you can't really chop and change.
I mean, what are you committing yourself to? 15 to 20 hours of gameplay? Which is not insignificant.
Nope. I mean, it could be worse. You could do what we did on Saturday night. So while I was at Games Expo, I bought Arkham Horror, the board game.
Yes, you did.
We set it up, what was it, about 8 o'clock? After we'd had a couple of bevies.
Yep.
By 11 o'clock, we had our arse absolutely handed to us. We was playing with 2 investigators, and we were consumed.
Yeah, it couldn't really have gone much worse, frankly.
We were running around the board fighting Doom and anomalies like it was going out of faction. So much so, the only 2 objectives or clue tokens that we played in the game were on the card to begin with. And obviously, when it flipped Doom status, they just disappeared. So it's like, okay, that's that wasted.
Yeah, we effectively couldn't really have done any less to succeed at the game. We pretty much definitively were crushed.
But we did run round and hit things like freight trains. So
yeah, I mean, the Operation Firefight was holding its own, I guess. And the weird thing was, it was difficult to see where we actually went wrong. The only thing, as I commented to you at the time, was I think we should have been a hell of a lot more aggressive in clearing the board of bad guys, instead of just letting them wander off into, it's like, okay, well, they're not in my district of Arkham. I don't care. But
then you've got me single-handedly running around and taking out Hounds of Talos and everything else because you're playing Minty Fan and I'm playing Agnes Baker.
Minty Fan, yeah. But considering neither of the characters we took were particularly beefy, we did do all right in the end as far as killing stuff. It's just, we couldn't contain the bloody fire, could we?
Again, it's like as soon as one anomaly was dealt with,
yeah.
Oh look, there's another one, and oh look, that's now feeding Doom like it's going out of fashion to the Doom tracker. I mean, the gate burst mechanic now in this edition is horrible.
It is pretty horrible, to be fair. And then there was a point when we reached a story card and it doubled the gate burst tokens, didn't it? And yeah. I think at that point it was like slippery slope.
The writing's on the wall.
Yeah. By the time that had have happened, we should have been well more advanced in terms of clue gathering and stuff like that. And we were just so far behind the clock, it was just not happening, was it?
But neither of us went insane, and neither of us actually died, so redeeming factor.
No, that is true. We were only killed when the world was swallowed by...
As a what's his face?
Yeah, I forget who it... which one were we fighting?
Azathoth.
Was it Azathoth? Yeah, it was Azathoth. Yes, you are correct.
But yeah, it was a good way to spend it.
I mean, we played the demo at UKGE last year, didn't we?
Yeah.
So we knew the game was killer. And
I just love the fact that board now you've got so much options and versatility with it.
Yeah, I agree. I know that
it's a gorgeous games design's choice from Fantasy Flight.
I know that it provoked a lot of mixed responses when they did change from second to third edition, and I imagine a lot of that was you get some people who were like, they're in for several £100 worth of core game and expansions and stuff like that, and there is literally no way to use any of that stuff. It's literally like, well, you've got a collection of stuff there. You can carry on. Yeah, because even
all the monster cards and everything have changed now, aren't they? Because they're a card format rather than the tokens that you used to put in a cup.
Yeah, exactly. The whole thing's completely overhauled. So I can sort of understand why some people were a bit, oh great, so I've spent all this money, but. Yeah. As I say, that game is still that game. If you own everything for that game,
it's still playable.
Definitely. I mean,
it's not the end of it.
I've only played second edition once when we played it at the club with Trevor, And it wasn't a bad game. I'll be honest, the only bit of the game that I found was a bit fucking irritating was when you kept getting sucked into that little dreamland bit, and you had to sort of then work your way back out, because that was a bit mega repetitive and not very satisfying.
Yeah, because again, you fail your test at the end of it, and then it's like, oh, I can't close the fucking anomaly now.
Yeah. So that was the only bit that I was a bit like, I could cool on this fast. Do you know what I mean? The rest of it was good fun. And and the characters were fun, and I think they captured a lot of magic moments. But no, I sing the praises of third. I think all of the changes are for the better. I can't think of a bit of third that I don't like.
It makes setup more tedious.
You think setup's more complicated with third?
Yeah, I think so, slightly. Ever so slightly.
I suppose that's true, because you've got to assemble the board as well, haven't you?
Yeah, whereas that's more my...
Yeah.
And at least in second you never had street encounters, did you?
That is true. That was a relatively safe zone. The street areas.
Whereas now it's like, oh, the streets have now got encounters as well, so we're going to get absolutely hammered. There is no respite. But, again, it's like we said, I said to you after we played it, because we played the demo game last year just as Expo was ending, so we sat down and started playing it at about 2-ish?
Yeah.
And when the show ended at 4, we stopped playing.
Yeah.
So I therefore didn't get a chance to buy it. So I did say to Paul, like, I want to buy it this year because I've been enjoying some board games more.
Yeah, well, I mean, that mirrors my experience. I'm playing a lot more board games currently than I'm playing miniature war games. And obviously that's large, that is partly because I'm here on Butte and we don't have a ton of board gamers.
Miniature war gamers, you mean?
I mean miniature war gamers, sorry mate, yeah, I'm painting and concentrating on that, not on talking. But yeah, so, that is part of
all
it.
The boys and girls at home.
But there is an element of board games are actually getting pretty damn good now.
Well, I mean, it's like this god tier stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you can even scratch your hobby in miniatures itch and painting and stuff. I mean, one of the things, just to fill everybody in, because again, I did contemplate, well, should we do I bought this and I bought this, but I don't know about the people at home, but I'm not a great fan of that sort of YouTube content where you just watch somebody unpack a shopping basket. But one of my purchases was Mansions of Madness, which is yet another of these. Yeah, that took
us long enough to find, though, didn't it?
Well, yet another, only because we were being tight, and I wanted to pay the lowest price possible. I mean, I could have bought it.
How much?
I could have bought it the first place we went to, but I had to go round the houses twice and ask everywhere just to get the best price, because that's me.
And then get it from Chaos Cards.
Yeah, for a very good price. If anybody is at UK Games Expo, certainly based on our experiences this year, try Chaos Cards first. Their prices on the day were very competitive. Very competitive.
Had Nemesis, which we had asked at basically every stand that had board games.
Yeah, they were the only ones to even have that.
Yeah. They had the Arkham board game, because again, not actually that many places had the Arkham board game, did they?
No, they didn't, to be fair. That wasn't as common.
Well represented. As well represented. Is more the word I was going for here.
But it's a bit long in the tooth now, isn't it? That's the thing.
Yeah, it's not the latest shiny.
Yeah, which is very much a thing, isn't it?
Whereas Mansions of Madness is pretty recent, isn't it?
No, Mansions of Madness is, I don't know, even older or just as old. No, it's even older. I'm fairly sure that second edition of Mansions of Madness was launched when 2nd edition Arkham was current. But I could be wrong on that, internet. Feel free to storm the comments, assail the comments with your pitchforks and burning torches and say, "Idiot boy."
How very thematic, though, considering we're talking about Arkham.
Yeah. Say, "Idiot child, you're completely wrong."
So, we've spent a good 40 minutes ranting about what we've done this week and about a few bits and pieces from Games Expo.
Well, I've finished doing the skin tones.
Shall we get onto the meat and potatoes of this topic tonight?
Well, do you want to do that? And then we'll do the game. We'll do our UKGE experience at the end.
Yeah, round it off with that little. Because it feeds nicely into that as well, actually.
So you'd rather do it in that order, would you?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, just bear with me, everybody.
Thinking.
I have a new magnifier off Amazon, and I've just knocked the lens out. So just bear with me a second. Yes, I got myself a new magnifying headset because I'd broken the clip on the back of the other one, and it didn't grip my head. That's why I kept losing it. During live streams, it would slip backwards off the back of my head and really annoy me. So to set the scene, as we said earlier in the stream, David decided he wanted
to go to UK Games Expo and to commit to a new game, new system. Wasn't really in the market for anything in particular, was I? It was just, I want to go to UK Games Expo and spend some money.
Yeah. And as we've said, you're a gaming magpie. You run a pretty broad church. You're like me. There's not a lot of things that you'll dismiss out of hand, is there?
No. If I'll try anything and everything once.
Yep.
If I don't like it, it might get a second chance. If it fails its second chance, it gets binned.
Yeah. And again, it's not as if we are spoiled for choice now. So, to be honest, it's often a good experience to be able to walk away from a game and say, that's not for me. Because it means you can do more with the resources and money you've got.
$100.
Yeah. So you decided you wanted to do a miniatures war game. Now, what was the first thing that you focused on in terms of making a decision? Was it what was available there, or did you already have some ideas?
So, long story short, I had watched GMG play the first two games of Fallout Wasteland Warfare. I loved the look of it. I said to you, we're going and getting a demo game of this because it's awesome. It looks awesome. Let's see how it plays. Moonstone, because that gets to really good rep at the Spalding Club, which is another club that's local to me.
Yep.
And we wanted to try some Moonstone. I mean, the miniatures when we were walking around were gorgeous and to die for. Back in 2nd edition for Wild West Exodus, so this is going back, 3 years now? At least 4 years?
More like 4, probably.
We had Wayland come up to club.
Yep.
Do some demo games, got some Captain Nimue minis. I've got mine somewhere. And it was a decent experience, but nobody really bit the Wild West Exodus bug in 2nd edition.
No.
It was a nice game, and I'd said to you a couple of times about possibly getting into it, and then you went and moved to Scotland, you inconsiderate fool. So that sort of rained on that. Now, obviously, recently myself, I've been playing some Star Scrappers, which is a sci-fi space western. I didn't really want to commit to an army game. I will say that and put that on the table now. Didn't want to commit to an army game. Didn't want to commit to, say, more than 30 miniatures, max.
Yep.
Kind of thing. Skirmish level, because it's where I'm happiest painting.
Yep.
Get shit done, get stuff done. Wasn't really fussed about the system or the aesthetic. I just wanted stuff that looked cool.
Okay.
Bushido was another good example while we were going around. We didn't get a demo game of it, but it looked really nice and really pretty.
Yeah, that was too busy. So essentially, first thing was you'd made up your mind that you didn't want to buy in at this point into a large-scale game. So obviously, when you're talking about miniatures war games, the scale, and by this I mean the amount of models or assets on the table, is a big thing, because the other thing with that is it can determine two things. Generally, it'll determine the length of the game. So larger model count games tend to play longer. There is the only exception I can think of that is Kings of War, where you can have a huge model count.
Yes, but I would also
it's very fast.
Counter with the Kings of War comment that Kings of War, whilst you can have like 15, 20 minis, and obviously it's rank and flank, you're actually not playing with those 50 or 20 minis individually. You're playing with a square base.
The regiment is the unit. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't subdivide like that. So, but the other thing is the hobby overhead. So obviously, if you have to paint 200 minis, then that's a massive thing. So,
well, again, you can kiss my ass goodbye, because I still haven't finished my 200 mini 40k or AOS armies. So I mean, my AOS army's 48 minis. Jesus.
So I mean, let's to represent the situation in visual form for the people at home.
In visual cues, yeah.
So where have we got here? Let me just choose one of these.
What am I at? That's quite warm. I did get all of my minis primed, but my compressor's just cut out, so I can't zenithal.
Oh, okay.
It's a start. It's a start.
Is that the one I wanted to check? Yeah, that is the one I want. So let's choose one of these as an example. Let's get my keyboard. Okay, let's go with that as an example. So let's go. So here we go, everybody. So large scale games, and by that we mean lots of table assets. Two strong contenders in this area would be Bolt Action.
Yep. And I do want to get into Bolt Action at some point, but at the moment at Club, there is not. Whilst Ricky said he's play with me, and Tom at Club has bought a German army, I don't want to pull the trigger on it right yet, because I know it will be a rabbit hole, because I started out cutting my teeth with Airfix.
Yeah, and not only that, to come back to it, you'd already said that you'd made this decision almost before the Games Expo. So
I made it before Expo.
I wanted a game, but I'm not going to go. Even though the game is something that appeals to me, Bolt Action, I'm not ready for the hobby overhead and the commitment that's demanding. So like here in Bolt Action, the starter armies are designed, the armor boxes are designed to be fully playable 1000 point lists, which is a standard game, which is quite unusual for miniature war games, where they literally give you the standard game to start rather than giving you a half or 2/3 of it and let you upgrade. Many people are familiar with like the starter armies from Games Workshop, which are more the latter. You don't get a full army out of the box.
You buy bits and pieces, but then you can tune and flavour it how you like.
You dip your toe in, and then you're going to need to be expected to spend 3 or 4 times that money again getting to where you need to go.
And that is one good point in both the Kings of War and Bolt Action cuts, that your starter armies are pretty much all you need, and they're not a bad price. They are really not a bad price.
No, they aren't. I mean, we'll come to money. We'll come to money in a bit. Let's just cover
what I was going to say with the Bolt Action. We have, however, found the army that I will eventually be going for, which is a flavour of Western Europe.
We can discuss that. We can discuss that when we discuss that. Let's just stay focused on how did you come to this decision. So, like, we've got a picture there. That's a Bolt Action 8th Army British. So you've got 20 infantry models, 4 artillery pieces, 2 vehicles. So, in fact, I think that's an officer group. So you've actually got like a mortar, 2 field guns, 2 Bren carriers, and 20 infantry. This is a picture I just lifted from the internet earlier. This is somebody's 2,000 point Tau army for Warhammer 40k. So you can see you've got 4 tanks, a walker, some smaller battle suits here, some more battle suits here, drones, Christ knows, what, 20 or 30 infantry. These are big commitment games. So setting the money aside, even Bolt Action at a very reasonable 88 of your British pounds. This is at full price because this is from Warlord. Bearing in mind you can probably get that 15 to 20% less than that. Money aside, painting, commitment, assembling, basing, priming. All of this is not an insignificant investment of time, depending on the level of finish you want to do. Even to get this to a basic tabletop standard is going to take some work, you know.
Yeah.
Compare that to your typical skirmish game. So I've got two examples here. Infinity is a skirmish game that David's already sort of invested in. He already owns all the models. He just needs to get it prepared for play.
I own enough models for 200-300 point armies.
So,
but the less said about that, the better.
This is a Ariadna. I think again, I've picked this off the internet. Congratulations, whoever you are, because this is absolutely fucking beautiful work. This is it Toha or Ariadna? I don't know who this is. Anyway, anyway, it's beautiful. But
it's Ariadna, it's not Toha.
This is a full army. 12 models. That's it.
Yeah.
You're done. 300 points, ready to play. Commitment. Frostgrave. Again.
Oh my god.
Not sure where the person's got these models from, but these are beautiful. Frostgrave. Your maximum warband size is 10. This person's got 9 here, so he's left himself a little bit of room for expansion as he plays through. But the hobby overhead, it's chalk and it's cheese. You're going to be able to paint these to a very good standard in a fraction of the time that it's going to take you to grind through that lot.
And if you spend the same amount of time on it as you do on your Bolt Action, the level of difference when you get it onto the tabletop is amazing.
Yeah, I mean,
because one is base coats and washes and sort of thrown down, and is a table ready standard. The other, you're going way above tabletop.
Yeah, and if you're an indulgence painter, all these models are unique. No grinding out units of 10. Every model is its own unique piece. You're going to need to commit to some batch painting with something like this. Do you know what I mean? Because everything's similar. They've all got the same uniforms. Obviously, it's a World War II game, so that's sort of given. But, I mean, even with a futuristic sci-fi game, you see all the livery on these tanks is the same. You've just got to copy and paste a formula. Repeat, repeat, repeat. This is one of the issues with these large-scale games. Now, money isn't necessarily as big a factor as the hobby overhead.
No, it certainly didn't. It didn't fully factor in my decision for what I ended up going for.
and to give you an example of why that's the case, this Infinity army, you would probably cost you best part of £100 to buy all of these models.
Because
Even
they're
though there's
metal,
only 12
because
of
they're
them.
gorgeous.
Yeah, because in Infinity, a lot of the models are sold as singles. They're all in metal. They're coming more in resin, but basically classically they're all metal.
The Sire cast resins are coming, and
Yeah.
they do look gorgeous.
Now,
but at the moment,
for the
we're
same
in
money,
metal stuff.
or in fact less, because the other thing is you don't find Infinity as heavily discounted or in as many online retailers as you do other products.
It's more niche.
Yeah, Corvus definitely aren't spread as wide, unfortunately. But bolt action for way more models is less.
Yeah.
So money isn't necessarily as big a thing as your time and hobby commitment. It can be. I mean, I dread to think what this lot cost.
What, the Tau army?
Yeah.
Where you've got what, 4 storms, 4 of the Devilfish and/or Hammerheads in there.
Yep.
They're at least 30-ish a pop. So that's 120 just on tanks.
These are only £30.
Yeah, they are not as dear as they're about the same price as a Rhino.
Okay, so they're cheaper than an infantry squad, effectively.
Yeah, they're about the same price as an infantry squad. You've got 2 infantry squads, they'll be about 25 to 30 quid each. So that's another 60.
Yeah.
So you're at 180 now.
What's that, a Riptide at the back?
Yeah, Riptide, that's 60
70?
odd at least, 70 usually.
So 250.
And then if you've got any crew and other bits and pieces in there, or a HQ, so you're probably looking at 220, 230.
Even if you buying this lot from internet retailers at 15%, I'm going to stick my neck out here and say that's £400.
Yeah.
Given the fact you've got all these battle suits, I count 9, 12.
Oh yeah, you've got all the broadsides.
Yeah.
They're 20 quid for a pair, 30 quid for a pair, and crisis suits again. If he's got 6 crisis suits, they're 30 quid for a box of 3.
Yeah.
Commander,
I think this is...
Yeah. It's easily 300.
Yeah.
Easily 300.
Yeah. So...
And that's before you even get into rules and codices and everything else. But
yeah. So that's your first... So basically, you decided the big game is not for me. What I'm in for is the small game.
The other reason for that is I don't get much time to play outside a club.
Yes.
There is a finite amount of time for me to play at club. If I go for a big game, the chances are I'm not going to get it finished, and I'm going to kick myself.
Yeah.
A skirmish game I can easily get done, and then I can fill the last hour out with playing some Magic or some cards or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's the...
Or just clear up without that pressure that you've got to get out. So, if you want to... So, you continue your story then. We'll go back to story time with David. So, you decided you were going to play a small-scale game. You're at UK Games Expo, and as you've said... There are all these games on show. So all the games you've mentioned had demo games running. So this comes down to something else that we talked about, which is the try before you buy.
Before you buy, yeah. Before you go and spend your hard-earned hobby dollar, try it. Try it at least once to know if it's for you.
Would you have said that was definitely a thing that was almost like set in stone?
Yes.
If there is almost 0% chance that you would have pulled the trigger on anything when you've got things that you could try first.
Look at it this way.
Yeah.
And this is spoilers and ruling out one of the games that I've already mentioned. Moonstone.
Yeah.
The minis, gorgeous to die for. From the quick spiel we had from the guy on the stand there's 3 factions in the entire game. You're
Yeah.
basically unlimited in how you build your army or your faction.
Yeah.
It's, what did he say? It was 6 minis?
Basically, he said just buy 2 boxes. I think the
Two
model
boxes.
the model count varies. So, like the Goblin Blimp is on its own in 1 box. But
Yeah.
effectively, he was like, buy 2 boxes. There you go.
But over the entire weekend, we couldn't get on the demo table.
No.
And whilst David at Club has bought Moonstone, and I will be trying it at some point, and I will probably end up committing to it.
Because but that's another thing. Obviously, we were one of the privileged few. We managed to get to UK Games Expo. We spent the money. We indulged ourselves on the full weekend
For
experience.
All 3 days. Yeah.
But it's not the only way to try before you buy. Your friends at the gaming club they will have games. You will encounter or bump into products you've never seen before, games you've never played before. Before you pull the trigger, try it. You know.
And whilst there is a lot of, this is actually another good point, because I bought God Tier.
Yeah.
Didn't I? Without actually trying it, because Steamforged, bless their souls, didn't have a demo game. They didn't have space for it.
No. They were
and I was a little disappointed.
Yep.
But after I'd seen the offer on the Friday, and on the Friday night and on the Saturday, I'd done a bit of reading, done a bit of looking, went and watched some GMG videos on the play style, etc. And the other thing for me, it's a board game.
I was just about to say to you, I think that falls outside of what we're talking about, because it's more of a strategic board game.
Yeah, no, but this is what I mean. That's the only exception to the rule of, I bought the minis because the minis are gorgeous and I want to paint them anyway. I like the look of the game, and I watched a YouTube video on how it plays, and I kind of like the idea. I didn't feel bad about dropping my hobby dollar on it without try before you buy. Do you know what I mean?
Well, worst case scenario, you spent, what, 50, 60 quid?
50.
50 quid, you got a load of models that if the game sucked absolute balls, there'd be great D&D pieces.
Yeah, or even just great pieces to have on a shelf as
display models.
Feature minis.
Like you say, you get the painting fun out of them. But as I say, I do think board games, particularly when the buy-in is so low, do you know what I mean? Board games are a different thing. We're focusing tonight on very much miniatures wargaming, because, and I think the other thing is, although they vary, it's not as easy to get into a miniatures wargame. You often have to cover a lot of things.
That was the other thing I was going to say. So, a GMG video on how to play God Tier, for example, will cover pretty much everything that you need to play the game. You can see and make a decision based on that video.
Yeah.
For a minis game, completely different. It's not necessarily going to touch on all the faction rules or all of the specifics or that kind of thing.
Well, to be fair,
because they might not appear. You only have to look at Infinity.
To be fair, even a God Tier game won't touch on all of the factions, but it won't talk. It won't. The difference.
You're not missing any of the rules, kind of thing.
Well, the difference between God Tier is that the decision about what you bring to the table is so easy. Versus a miniatures game. You know, virtually any miniatures game that you enter into, if you're buying this, you're sort of committing yourself to that. You're going to be closed out of that unless you want to buy everything. Do you know what I mean? Buy that army plus that army, and then you're buying twice as much stuff. So you definitely didn't want a large-scale game. You definitely wanted to buy or commit to something that you'd had an opportunity to try.
Yeah.
So you've already said aesthetic wasn't necessarily a thing that worried you over much, was it?
No, I want something I can paint to a decent standard, because that's how I am as a gamer.
Yeah.
I like the look at this as you get it out of the box that you're bringing it to clubbing.
Yeah.
Obviously, Fallout's already on my radar because I love the Fallout franchise in general.
Yeah.
Wild West Exodus was on my radar because I'd seen that there was obviously 3rd edition out now. I like the aesthetic of it.
Yep.
Something that we did get a demo game of that wasn't on my radar before UK Games Expo, Mythos.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, do you know what, mate? I was just looking at some of the slides I've prepared for this conversation, and the other one that you didn't play, and I think it would have very much influenced your final decision, was Marvel Crisis Protocol.
Yes.
Because I don't think you've necessarily got a huge hard-on for Marvel or IP or anything like that, have you?
Yeah, says you as I'm sat here wearing a Marvel top. But
well,
yeah,
so,
it's not to the same level as my hard on for Fallout, for example.
Okay.
I've cosplayed and gone to Comic-Con as Fallout characters. I've made 3D printed a laser rifle and made a Vault Survivor suit, etc. I've done all of that. I've spent hundreds of hours playing Fallout 3, 4, and New Vegas.
Okay.
It's similar to my hard-on for Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, okay, got you.
Because I love the art style, I love the minis, I love the game in itself.
Yeah. I think, and the reason I think it would have, in that case, yeah, bearing in mind, obviously, Wasteland Warfare wasn't something you committed to, even with the enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And the fact that we did a demo game. It still wasn't the chosen child on this occasion, was it?
No. And that actually related to price and the fact that third-party resellers were doing better discount on it than Wasteland Warfare at Expo.
Than Modifius himself.
Modifius at Expo. And the fact that Viet Club had mentioned that he was getting into it.
Yeah.
And there seems to now be a lot of chatter in Club about getting some Fallout Wasteland Warfare and playing it, etc. So I don't think it will be too long before I do pull the trigger on it.
But it wasn't something you felt you needed to champion.
Yeah, I don't need to own it, hold people's hands, show demo games off, and that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
This was one thing that we didn't mention in our when we talked about this the other night, but that's a very good point. One of the things that can influence your decision is what do you intend to do with it. So obviously, are you like David and me, where you're an experienced Magpie tabletop gamer, heavily active in a gaming club, and you think that your role is to be the man who casts the fly and gets them, hooks people into new shiny toys? Or are you literally the guy that, well, I'm not buying it unless somebody else jumps first? Because again, that affects your decision, doesn't it?
That again stems back to the fact that why I haven't pulled the trigger on bolt action yet.
No.
Because it's that thing of I don't, and it sounds bad, but for example, £100 commitment gets me 2 armies for several different gaming systems. Look, it got me both of my Infinity Starter armies.
Yeah. Oh, we got somebody in chat.
Tim's here.
Evening, Tim.
You've been late. Glow over Star Wars releases. What are we talking about tonight? We're talking about UK Games Expo and what I purchased alongside the decisions that go into purchasing at the moment, Tim. So you've joined sort of at an opportune moment.
In a nebulous way, Tim. What we're talking about is all of the decision making that goes into choosing to buy into a tabletop war game. And we've covered so far tonight number of assets, so scale of game. To take 2 examples, 50 or 60 models for bolt action versus 12 models for Infinity. Massive difference in hobby overhead, etc. We've also talked briefly about what else have we talked about, David?
pricing and how that didn't necessarily affect my decision.
Yeah, it can be.
Again, it can affect others. And we're now touching on are you a hobby magpie like me and Paul, i.e. you own one of everything?
Yeah.
And you're there to hook people on the particular game, and you're going to run demo games? Or do you want to pull the trigger, only commit to one thing because you're not pulling the trigger on your own kind of thing? You got somebody else to come with you. And actually, that's a really good example, because we went to Dicini in Norwich, didn't we? Just before you left for Scotland.
Yeah.
And when we was at Dicini, we played some Drowned Earth. We played a demo game, actually, as well.
I'd seen it on Tabletop, so I already had it on my radar massively.
And off the back of that demo game, we both purchased a
Start faction and the rulebook,
because it's 50 quid in a rulebook. Because it only gets you 5 minis, but my god, are those minis gorgeous and metal. I mean, you can kill a man with your gorilla.
Yep.
So again, that's actually a good example where I've done both sides. Do you know what I mean? I've done the buy everything, like I've done for Infinity, because it's not really championed well at club, or with Drowned Earth, for example, when you were here, buying half each and then going
following
at it
on.
and having
you about to say how bolt action factored into that?
Bolt action factors into it at the moment for me, because whilst Tom has a set and Ricky's on about getting into it, I don't want to buy 2 armies worth of stuff and have even more hobby commitment.
Yeah.
Than
so again,
a single army.
Again, that question has come up. So what do you intend to do? Well, I know I'm not going to be the guy who spreads the word on bolt action, not the one who says, I have 2 armies, come on in and play. You're going to wait, let it get established, and then you've got an idea of what you're going to go for, and you're going to jump on board.
Yeah, even if I help establish it by pulling a trigger on my army, I'm not going to commit to 2 armies before I've definitely got somebody else on board with me to help spread that bolt action look.
Yeah. So like I say, we're narrowing it down. It's definitely going to be small scale. It's definitely going to be something that you can demo game or have played previously. And then we started to do some demo games, didn't we? So we played the new version of Wild West Exodus. We played Mythos. We did play Wasteland Warfare.
Yeah, that was on the Sunday, wasn't it?
Yeah. What else did we play? We'll ignore the Kickstarter game because that was more for other reasons that we played that.
That was about it, I think, mate.
Yeah, we didn't get a chance to play Bushido. We didn't get a chance to play Conquest. We didn't get a chance to play Moonstone. Problem is, UKGE, huge as it is, my god, it's always busy. And trying to get into everything is so hard.
There for an hour.
Yeah.
So yeah, we played some Wild West Exodus, we played some Mythos. And that was on the Saturday, wasn't it?
Yep.
So I went back to the hotel room on a Saturday night, and I was looking at terrain. I was looking at, because again, both of the games that we played on the Wasteland stand, Mythos and Wild West Exodus, the games that we played on Saturday, do kind of require a specific look and feel for their terrain.
Yeah.
TT Combat had a really good deal on just plain MDF Wild West terrain as well. That was £100 for a nice table.
So essentially, after Saturday and playing a few games, you decided that it was probably gonna be either Wild West Exodus or Mythos.
Mythos, the minis are gorgeous. Now, whilst your ship was flipping in the demo game and going insane and my stuff wasn't, the mechanics and stuff were there. Now, Wayland, after they've obviously, because at the moment they're just playing with the old cards at the moment, they're currently updating everything for like a 2nd edition, aren't they?
For Mythos, they are, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's only a very recently acquired. They got it from Paranoid Miniatures, I think. They've only recently got it.
Yeah, it's not as established as Wild West or
Not for
dystopian.
them,
If
anyway.
you know what I mean, for them. Dystopian, again, whilst the game looks good and the stuff on the demo table looked amazing, DW at Club already owns a ton of Dystopian, so if I want to pick up game of that at some point and it's something I want to pull the trigger on, I just go and ask David
And
about
you're not going to cross the threshold on it until you've done the try before you buy.
No. That
And
is
you
a
know
very
that, and you know
strong
that
commitment
opportunity is
for me.
elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So both of the games we settled on were 28 mil, effectively 28, 30 mil.
32 heroic, aren't they?
Yeah. Very different settings, like you said. One's almost early 20th century, grimdark horror. The other is steampunk 19th century Wild West. So very different looks. So out of the two aesthetics, was that a deciding point for you, or were you sold on both aesthetics?
I was sold on both aesthetics, and you know I was sold on both aesthetics from the fact that I stood on that stand for a good 10 minutes, umming and ahhing about, I could get into 2 games, couldn't I?
Yes.
Because that's a thing, isn't it? I could spend all my money here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I loved the card mechanic in WWX. So whilst people might not be a favourite with it, you get what's called a action card and an adventure card. Now your adventure cards are in your hand.
Well, because you've got two. You've got the little deck of half cards, haven't you? And then a full.
And then So the adventure cards, you have a hand, and your hand size depends on the points level of the game you're playing at.
Right.
But on that card has a guts side and a glory side. Now, the glory side tends to be played for VP and objective points. Yeah. The guts side is played for either triggered abilities, extra activations, that kind of thing.
You can only play that one card. One of two
and you
ways.
have to choose what you're picking it for, and once you've used it, you've used it.
Yeah, I did like it. I did like that flexible choice in the game mechanic.
And then you have your action cards. So these are little half cards, and there's 2 things that you care about on your action cards. So there's a number in the top left-hand corner that counts up for however many's in the deck, just for competitive play to be able to skim through the cards real quick and check that nobody's cheating. And then that number is used for initiative instead of like an initiative roll-off in other games. And then the actual main point of the card is the action points on it. So like 1, 2, 3, and there's a 4 and a 5 in that deck as well, isn't there?
I think so. 1, 5. I think he said probably 2 or 3 4s. A lot of 2s and 3s. They're the most common.
And those action points you can use on your models to spend to do stuff like shooting, moving, combat, that kind of stuff. So how a typical turn plays out is obviously you and your opponent flip these half cards for the initiative off. Once that's done, they're burnt, so you don't use them. You then choose what model you're activating because you've got initiative. Flip your action point deck, and then that tells you how many action points you've got to spend on a particular model and what you're doing with it. And you can flip the card before you decide which model to activate. So there is that nice. Cheers, Tim, and we'll catch you around some point soon, mate. That particular card then goes into spending on what you want to do for your turn, and it's an alternating activation game, so there's no alpha strikes and that kind of thing. Mythos, on the other hand, has a roll-off mechanic for deciding who has like priority, and then it's just alternating activations across the warband, doing abilities. The only funky mechanic with that is spending your mythos that you get generated on particular miniatures for effects or abilities or that kind of thing, isn't it, Paul?
And that's the risk-reward thing, because each time you use mythos, there is a risk that your model flips to its, or your character flips to its insane side on its card, which
some get better, some get worse.
yeah, you might get more aggressive but less control over what's going on. It might become more powerful but more random in a weird way. It's quite a clever. It's a very clever mechanic.
It's a nuanced mechanic.
It is,
Very
yeah.
nuanced.
And even there are some models that don't go insane necessarily just by spending mythos. They can go insane. They've got other insanity triggers on them. Like the warband I played, one of the characters, if her children die or get taken out of action, she immediately goes insane. It's quite a clever thing. It's a very good game. So
the minis for both were beautiful.
Yep. So the aesthetic I like them both. The miniature quality, obviously, we're talking same manufacturer, same game company. You enjoyed both systems. You felt both systems were nuanced enough. So a lot of these things were just dead heats, weren't they? Terrain.
Yeah. Terrain is kind of a big one. So I had the choice of pre-painted stuff from Wasteland or DIY 3D prints and MDF terrain and all that jazz again. Now, obviously, what you get
before you move on,
yeah,
is that the same for both games? Did you feel that one of the two you maybe had more options for terrain?
Wild West Exodus certainly had more options than the Mythos stuff.
I mean, the Dunmouth pre-coloured stuff from Wasteland to support their own game Mythos is fucking amazing. But I agree with you. If you want early 20th century backwards America or urban America, good luck finding a shit ton of terrain.
Yeah, and particularly that post-apocalyptic but not post-apocalyptic nuclear wasteland like Fallout aesthetic. Because that War Cradle stuff is gorgeous.
For Wild West Exodus?
For both systems.
Both. Yeah. I mean, again, they do, because I mean, they do pre-coloured stuff for Wild West Exodus, but it's like you've just said, you ruminated over the massive table. MDF table deal from TT Combat, because with Wild West Exodus, you could just take and lift any generic Wild West terrain, either 3D print, MDF, whatever, and it looks perfect, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, from that point of view, you would say Wild West Exodus had a bit of an edge?
It had a bit of an edge, but the counter to that point is Wild West Exodus's posse building system. Typically, when I buy a game like Carnivale at Last Games Expo, and I'm doing this whole kit and caboodle, I'm buying two factions.
Yes.
I like two factions that play completely differently.
Yes.
So I've got my Doctors, which are playing on hard mode for Carnivale, and you're going to lose more games than you're going to win with them while you're learning. And then the Patricians that are all sort of average, middle of the road, but a little bit finagly as well. But there's no massively special rules or ranged or that kind of thing. Mythos, the miniatures are a gorgeous aesthetic. Each kind of has its own unique look and feel. So there's the Druid set, there's that Priory Librarian set that we were playing with on the demo table, the actual Cthulhu set with the Dunsmouth Witch and the Angler and Click Clack. There's like an Egyptian themed one. There's like a Romany Traveller one that's got some nice, gorgeous little goblin miniatures in. So everything in that Mythos set is all kind of the same. Everything's got a little bit of range. Everything's got a little bit of shooting. It's just, what aesthetic do you want? Wild West Exodus system is, what do you fancy playing as? Do you fancy playing as lawmen? Do you fancy playing as aliens? Do you fancy playing as outlaws,
Yep.
pick a mini box that looks cool.
Because as Darren said, and as you've just said, say for example, let's take this applies to Infinity as well, but let's take a different game. Let's take 40k is a pretty good example because you do get some pretty asymmetric factions in 40k, don't you?
Yes, you have the Necrons
Tau,
that have no... Well, again, Tau and Necrons have no psychic phase.
Yeah, they've got no psychic. Tau are very shooty. They dread getting into hand-to-hand combat. They've got a couple of models that can hold their own, but in hand-to-hand, they tend to go more for survivability than lethality.
Yeah.
Then you take something like Nurgle. Essentially, everything's hugely survivable, ever so ploddy, and once it engages you, it just starts deleting you piecemeal.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas, so you've got some real asymmetry in the factions. Malifaux.
And again, you've got
very
Space
similar.
Marines that are jack of all trades.
Yeah, you do have some less asymmetric factions, but I think it's there in the game. But like Darren said with Wild West Exodus, it wasn't No, it's not something that the game's design team have focused on. So when we asked Darren the question, which is our control faction, which is our ranged faction, which is our close combat faction, he's like, well,
there isn't such
they
a thing.
all are, just by different models. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I went away on Saturday night.
Here's a question before you move on. We were talking about terrain. Was another factor when you sometimes buy a game or start the process of committing yourself to a miniature war game?
Yeah.
Obviously, you buy your models, your rules, all the things you need to play the game. Then because it's a miniatures... Oh, Ricky!
Ricky.
Because it's a miniatures war game, you then have to commit to the next step, which is terrain and the gaming table.
Yes.
Now, let's take Mythos. What other games would you play with Mythos terrain?
Fallout.
You think that would work? Yeah, okay, I'll give you that.
Well, look at it this way. I bought the Dunsmouth Fish Market on the basis that I am getting into Fallout.
Okay, so Fallout. Anything else?
That's about it.
If you bought the... Sorry, what was that? Gotham?
Yeah, the Batman. Yeah.
Yeah, fair call. Batman started in the 1930s.
Exactly.
So yeah, okay. If you bought the Wild West Exodus terrain, just the terrain range, what other games could you play with that?
Star Scrappers, 40k, Infinity, Fistful of Lead, that Cutlass from what's its face? Black Scorpion.
The pirate game.
Yeah.
Or their Wild West
one.
No,
their Wild West one, but
I think
you know
it's
what
Dead
I mean.
Man's Hand it's called, but I know what you meant. So yeah, was that a factor, bearing in mind what you decided?
Probably not consciously. Subconsciously, maybe.
Okay. So although it could be a decision point for some, for you it wasn't on this occasion.
Factor, no.
Okay. So, essentially, by Saturday night, you were 95%.
Yeah, it was going to be either Mythos or it was going to be Wild West Exodus.
Yeah. And what was the clincher?
I think it was that conversation that you'd said to me, actually.
Right.
The fact that while we played the demo
Nice
game
one,
of
Ricky.
both,
Ricky's finished all of his DZC bits and looking good, ready to go. There you go, mate. That's what you want. Somebody who gets the hobby done. Anyway, sorry, interrupted. Carry on.
it's like you said after we'd played the Mythos game, and I was sat there umming and ahhing about pulling the trigger on both. Was Mythos? We had basically played a kill point game, i.e., first one to obliterate the opponent.
It was exactly what it said on the tin. It was a demo game. It was not as representative, I don't think, of the full gaming experience.
Yeah. So, whereas not Carnivale, Wild West Exodus had the mechanics in for objectives.
The glory cards.
The glory cards. So it's more representative of how a game will actually play.
Yeah.
So I then spent Saturday night scrolling through Wayland's website for both the Mythos stuff, looking at that, and Wild West Exodus.
Yeah.
And I think after we'd had a pint and we'd sat and spoken about it, I had basically committed to Wild West Exodus.
And then the only decision to make was what you were going to buy within that game. But we'll leave that for another video. Because that's a whole... When you've chosen your poison... That was a rabbit hole. I was going to say, when you've chosen... I mean, for all those people who might come across this live stream and be watching us who are board gamers or card gamers, I thought we spent so much time going through this decision-making process at the Games Expo. I just thought it would be really good to touch upon it on the live stream, just to open the curtain a bit and see what goes into deciding what to buy. Because I find it interesting. I hope everybody else does to some
degree. Well, again,
as well.
I was up from 5 o'clock on Sunday morning looking for what I was going to buy.
Yeah. But as you say, by that point, it was like, I know the game. Now I just need to pick the toys.
Decision has been made.
Yeah. So, excellent. Good job, man. Good job. So, for anybody who's missed it, the TLDR version is that David pulled the trigger on Wild West Exodus. And he committed...
And not just a little bit.
You committed yourself to 2 full war bands, didn't you, mate?
Yeah.
A terrain set.
Yes.
Rules
and gubbins.
And the rules and gubbins. So essentially, you're going to be, I'm the flag waver. Here's the Wild West Exodus. Come play with my toys at Club, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Good stuff.
And I mean, you only have to... I haven't even painted any of the minis yet. And Ricky, who is here in chat, is already drooling over them. And they've not even got paint on the minis yet.
I must confess that the reason that I sort of was able to sit outside of this and be a bystander, just for everybody who at home there, is that I already own a ton of Wild West Exodus models and a ton of Mythos models. I bought stuff years ago, and it's just been gathering dust. But watching David go through the process has definitely fired me up to dig some stuff out, get some of the stuff that I never got painted. And the games were fantastic.
They were gorgeous games.
And the more I sit here and talk, the more I realise that we didn't do a Games Expo. We didn't try Legion. We didn't.
There wasn't any Legion though.
There was over on the Atomic Mass had demo games. We didn't try Bloodfields.
No, we did say about trying Bloodfields, but we didn't have opportunity to. Really, we didn't have time to.
But there was so much we could have explored that either we ran out of time or we just couldn't push our way through to the front of the queues because the games were so popular. But it's like I said at the beginning of the live stream, this is an incredible time to be in this hobby, isn't it?
Yeah. An
incredible time to be in this hobby. So, Well, should we tell them a little bit about Fallout Wasteland Warfare?
Yeah, let's do a show and tell. So we played a demo game. It was literally the scenario from the first one in the rulebook. If you've watched GMG's channel, you'll have seen him play it. It's what was it? It's super mutants versus the survivors that have just wandered out of the vault. And the survivors here are here in dog meat, so they've got to get to dog meat, activate dog meat, and then wipe the super mutants off the table.
Just before we go any further, Ricky's just posted in chat that the big thing for him that he's late to the hobby. So many guys have all the games and teams with them, and he finds it hard to get the miniatures, and then no one at the club to play the game. That happens to all of us, mate. You know, particularly David and I have got so many games that we've got models for that they just don't see the table often enough, and it is a real problem. But the thing is like, I always think be willing to try other people's games and try and get yourself set up so that you've got a good model collection, even if it's only 2 small half armies for a game, so that you can rope somebody in. And again, do a you scratch my back, I scratch yours. We'll play your favourite game this week. Now next week you're going to try my game, please. And that's the best way to go.
More, sir.
But yeah, I know exactly what you mean, mate. It's so difficult because you just want to buy everything. Let me just change this over. So, as David was saying, we had the basic demo scenario, which basically he had to free the dog, and I had to... Let's go to the slideshow for everybody at home. He had to... There's the dog being surrounded by... I don't know what these green skin things are.
Super mutants.
Super mutants, there you go. So, this is an interesting... So, let's just presage this. David, we've already ascertained, is a massive nerd for Wasteland Warfare and Fallout and the whole Fallout universe. Me, I've played a bit of Fallout 4.
Bit of thingy as well, haven't you?
What's thingy?
New Vegas.
No.
Yes, you have played New Vegas.
Well, I only own one of them. Which one is it I own?
New Vegas.
So that's the one I've played. See, I don't even know which one I've played because I'm so not interested. I'm not a computer game nerd. I'm not sold on the IP. So I'm the antithesis of David.
Of me.
There was only one thing leading up to the demo game that actually interested me about this, and that is there's a channel called Flix Gaming, I think it is, FLIK' on YouTube. It's a guy from somewhere here in Scotland, I think it's Glasgow area, who does a lot of... He started doing Batman, but he's branched out and does a lot of other stuff. He's done a lot of solo and campaign play for this game. And that is what attracted me, because obviously being here on an island just off the coast of Scotland, anything that says to me, I'm a miniatures war game, but if you've got a free Sunday afternoon and nobody to play with, you can play with me. Immediately, I'm like, tell me more.
I am intrigued.
You have my attention. So, even though I was not overly sold on the Fallout IP, exactly. The other thing, I'm going to come clean. We sat down at the demo table. Let me check and see what screen people are looking at home. So this is the first picture. Some people, clever people at home, will recognise this terrain here. Because this is all the battle systems cardboard terrain. Not sure where the mat was from. They probably got it from P-Works. I think everybody there was using P-Works mats. All of the demo gamers. So
Other than Wayland. Wayland, we're using Kraken.
This is the human faction. Did you only have 3? Yeah, you only had 3 models, didn't you, David? David played these guys.
I got Dog Meat after.
Yeah, David played these guys, and I took the super mutants. And the miniatures did grab my attention. Not particularly
even though they're soft plastic PVC,
particularly
they are extremely detailed.
And the monster models, you knew what they were called, David. There was like that big
Deathclaw.
The Deathclaw, which was the big thing, and then there were like the chunky dogs.
The Super Mutant Hounds.
So those models looked amazing, and the kind of things I would paint just to enjoy painting them. These humanoid models I'm not so bothered with, but they're not bad models, not by any stretch. They're good models.
There's worse minis to paint.
There are. And that was not something I was expecting going in to like as many of the minis as I do. But yeah, we kicked the game off. And I think basically we both focused hard on what we had to do, didn't we?
Yeah.
I basically ran the frick away because with the dog sort of started
in the centre of the table,
where this sort of stairs and platform is, and I ran my guys away behind it to get the 2 objectives that were in the far corners of the table, and then I ran another guy. Yeah, ran the big guy straight at him aggressively at the front left-hand corner. Again, I just wanted the objectives. I had to flip the objectives. I wasn't really caring about bringing him down. So I focused on my plan, and you just basically ran straight forward for the dog, didn't you?
Yep. Get the dog, shoot the shit out of you on the way.
I think the first bit of real luck I had was the super mutant that I sent to my back right-hand corner to flip an objective. Very nearly got taken out. I think he was clipped down to 1 wound before I got him out.
He was running around.
Then I got him out of line of sight, and he was safe. But he was literally one spike dice roll, and I could have lost a whole model, which would have slowed me down no end, because I had 4 objectives to flip with 3 models anyway. 2 in 4 objectives with 2 models would have been too much. There's no way I would have done it. So that was the first bit of luck I had. The dice god said, yeah, go on, you can survive on 1 wound. Then I was able to keep him out of sight, and he managed to just squeak up, and it was literally like the last turn, David, I got into cover just behind the 4th objective. I was about 2.5, 3 inches away.
Yeah.
And I was in cover.
It just came down to priority of who had that turn, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, no, because the end of the turn before, I think you had this woman in blue. She was roughly around the area of the base of these stairs. My model was, if you're looking at this picture, because this isn't our game, my model was in this front right-hand corner, just behind this crate, which is where the objective is. And it was like, he had the last activation with that woman in blue, and he threw the dice, and he failed to take that 1 wound off me. Because again, that model would have been then gone dead, and I would have been pushing up a very steep hill to get that objective activated. But again, the dice god said, no, you're alright. My guy survived on 1 wound in the cover. Then the initiative passed back to me for the next round, and I just took the first activation, whipped round the corner, and flipped the objective to win.
And again, you never failed a single objective roll, did you?
No. The dice very much played into my favour. But like I say, it could have gone either way. It was a very tight game. I was really impressed with it. I love the way they've incorporated colour into the game design. So like the D12s that you use are all colour coded.
Yeah, you roll a D20, but it's actually a D10, which is the white one for all your skills. But then when you're attacking, like on the charge, you can choose to get a green dice or a black dice on the charge. You don't get to charge and then activate the model and punch the shit out of something. You just get to add another dice for when you actually end up attacking.
Yeah, and the different colours do different things. So, like, because the specialist symbols on them, the green dice make your attacks more accurate. The black dice make your attacks do more damage, and the yellow dice
is armor cracking.
Yeah, make it more likely that you'll get through an opponent's armor. So it's a very good, and then all of your movement is off little coloured measuring sticks instead of using a tape measure. That's neither in or there. I don't mind using a tape measure, but I know for some people it's a thing. But the dice mechanic is very clean in it. The cards that drive everything, so you have equipment cards, character cards, all of your assets are displayed on cards. It gives you a very clean board space. Everything's really easy to read, and it's quite intuitive once you've done it a couple of times. And the model count is nice and low. It's nice and interactive. It's a great little game. So even though I'm like, Fallout, meh, I'm still definitely going to be buying this and exploring it as a game.
Yeah. I'm just gonna have a look on towards the floor because I've just dropped a mini. But I can't find him.
And to finish the photos up, obviously, the amount of stuff available for it now, David, is bloody huge, isn't it? You've got decorative scenery pieces like this little Nuka-Cola dispenser that are so heavily themed.
Two expansions now, expansion sets.
Yep.
Which are game related. So Wasteland Warfare is Fallout 4 related, but they've released a Commonwealth starter to relate to Fallout 3 and a New Californian Republic starter to relate to New Vegas.
But then there are literally tens of individual minis, terrain packs. There's loads of stuff in there.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff, mate. There's absolutely tons of stuff.
I mean, they had like 2 full-length racks of just stock to buy.
Yeah.
There's a crazy amount of gear for it.
I would certainly recommend it to anyone that likes the IP. The other thing is the fact that it's a narrative game, narrative campaigns as well as just like single scenarios.
Yeah.
Not as just solo narrative, but
no.
Co-op narrative.
Yeah. Well,
and that idea of building your settlement to get stronger so that you live to fight another day rather than just leveling up your characters.
I mean, to be fair, we can't oversell it because we only just did a demo game. If anybody wants to watch more video content, as I say, Flicks Gaming, I'll put a link in the doobly-doo, the box down the bottom description. But GMG, Flicks Gaming.
Yeah, GMG's done a Let's Play with 2 players.
I'm sure he's done some campaign or maybe solo stuff as well, you know. Because Ash has done a fair bit on this. Because he's a bit like you. He geeks out about the IP massively. So
I can't blame him.
We've got 10 minutes to go. That was pretty good, I think, Guy. We covered all of our options, covered all of our bases. Completely ignored Ricky, bless him.
Oh, bless him. I'll tell you what I will do before, seeing as we've only got 10 minutes left, I'll just put my...
You want to hang on getting the game, Ricky, because David's definitely going to buy it, and you can play it first. To be fair, I know that you're not a huge fan of card-driven games, but I think Fallout will be bang on for you.
Yeah.
Because everything is so clean. You haven't got to read 40 pages of text.
No.
It's all just little symbols and stuff. It's bloody brilliant.
Before you get too bogged down in your painting,
right?
Can you put my minicam live for boys and girls at home?
Yeah.
Because I've been zenithing.
Yes. Well, it's easy to do that when you're not trying to run a live stream, isn't it?
Oh, shut up.
There you go.
There we go. Morrigan.
So did you get everything zenithal you wanted to?
Yeah, everything's got a coat of zenithal on it. I just need to finish off the samurai in a minute. But look at him.
That's a pretty cool model. Is it a him or is it a her?
I don't know. It's
it's a dead thing.
Jean with her coat of zenithal.
Yeah, she's got some really deep shadows on her. She should paint up nice. You have to get yourself some speed paints, boy.
I've got a contrast, boy.
I still think you should get yourself some speed paints.
I'm really looking forward to painting at this scale as well.
So it's going to be done by next week then, yeah?
And then...
You heard it here, Ricky. He's going to have both warbands done for next week, mate.
Even the little boys, look.
I heard him say.
Shut up.
Definitely a thing.
Don't. Stop pouring salt in my room. Look at him.
Has the paint thickened his legs up enough so he doesn't bend over now?
No, because it was this one. Was it? It was one of them. One of them I touched and he just basically folded like a lawn chair.
Are you sure you didn't just leave him on your radiator?
No, I found him. I found him. He's still folding like a lawn chair.
Don't, you'll crack the paint. Then you'll trigger yourself.
Nah. I mean, even the banner.
I must confess that Samurai Goblin one is like, yeah, I'm sold. Sold to me.
I mean, the objectives have come up gorgeously as well, look.
Yeah. Can't wait to see you get some paint on them, mate.
Well, you know what I'm thinking?
What, that you might push it and try and get it done before my eyesight fails completely.
No, I'm thinking those new paints that I purchased. But that's spoilers.
Okay. Yeah. It's like I said to you, though. I think you've got to be careful with something like that. Otherwise, you end up with it on every project.
I'm just thinking in that geode, though, it'll look really cool.
Yeah. The golem-y things probably would work.
On these.
Don't put it on the samurai goblins, though.
No, I'm not going to put it on the samurai goblins. What kind of heathen do you take me for, sir?
You don't want to know the answer to that question.
Right, anyway. My minicam.
Are you done?
I'm done. I'm done showing off.
Showing off. Freudian slip, everyone. Freudian slip.
Why Freudian slip, eh?
Well, the truth will out, mate. You just try hard.
Dude. How do I always paint?
On fucking hard mode, fair.
Therefore, was that really a point that the people at home didn't know?
To be fair, they had probably grasped that if they'd been with us a few weeks. Jesus. So yeah, that was a good chunk of our UK Games Expo experience. Well, mine was living with David's angst as he worked his way
hobby indecision
through his what game do I buy? What game do I buy?
Well, again, how many warbands did I have in my basket on Wasteland on Saturday night to look at?
I don't know, mate.
8 warbands to go through. So I ended up making Paul my personal shopper at Wayland, and I made him
to
hold all of my boxes while I was looking at them.
I was going to say, you went round both sides of the stand and piled them up on my arms and on the floor in front of me, like we're trying to build some sort of Lego display out of miniature boxes.
To be fair, the Wayland guys were just as bad though, weren't they?
Well, they were pissing themselves. I don't think they'd ever seen anybody do anything quite so ridiculous in their lives.
You say ridiculous, I say planning.
Unique.
I'm one of a kind.
Yeah, luckily. Some might say.
To be fair, the best was Sunday morning when you woke up, looked over because I'm just laid in bed doom scrolling through the Wayland website, and he's like, "Have you been to fucking bed yet?" No, Paul, I've been up all night doom scrolling because I haven't decided what army I want.
We know it's Wild West Exodus. We call that progress. What Wild West Exodus? Well, that's still to be determined. Oh, God save us.
God save the Queen.
But yeah, it's amazing when you think about it. The things that we didn't do, the things we didn't try.
Well, we didn't get, like you say, we didn't get Moonstone, we didn't get Legion, we didn't get Bloodfields.
I wanted to try that Crooked Dice Fantasy version 7TV, yeah. Which we will talk about probably on one of our other streams. Because that's the other thing. That's the other great thing about UK Games Expo is that the experience
it's the gift that keeps on giving.
It gives you you walk away from it with all of these ideas buzzing in your head, don't you? Games you've seen, games you've played. I mean, there was a board game that I would have loved to have sat in on a demo, but I think the playtime was rather long. But it was bang up my street. For everybody who's of my age, it was a board game adaptation of John Carpenter's The Thing, the horror movie, which I believe is either a remake of an older movie, a 50s movie, I think. But yeah, with Kurt Russell and the alien in the snow, the dog's head that famously splits into four like a flower. Crazy movie. And there's a board game. And it looked brilliant. All of the people sort of trying to work out who's the alien.
That was the best though, wasn't it, as well? Because it was Games Expo and nobody knew anyone and nobody knew any of the tells, etc. Yeah. Everyone was so...
No, she's going to go and search
dubious of everyone else.
Get some food. Well, I'm not going with her.
It was brilliant in that regard.
It looked very cool. Only down tick, no miniatures. It was all cardboard standees, so I didn't get my miniature itch scratched. But you can't always have everything. Can't always have everything.
Don't worry, because even when there's a board game that you like your miniatures itch, you suddenly realise you've been playing it wrong.
Yeah, that is true. That is fair.
Love you, Ginge, but that's
all right.
Story
that's fair.
Well, for another night.
I mean, again, we'll tell the people about we'll discuss that maybe on one of our other live streams, because to be fair, that was another thing that obsessed me, certainly. I suppose that was my version of what your Wild West Exodus experience, because that went round and round and round in my head like a fucking, you know...
I mean, that fucker kept you awake Thursday night.
Oh my God, I was so annoyed. But yeah. Well, we're coming up to time. Thank you, everybody, for
sticking with us,
watching the video. If you'd like to do us all a massive favour, then please like the video, share it in any Facebook groups or to even on your personal Facebook wall if you think it's watchable enough. Subscribing to the channel is massive. Trying to get our numbers up for the YouTube algorithm helps to get our videos in front of new viewers.
And if you leave comments, we will be here and we
Yep.
will be reacting with
Yep.
you guys. If you've got opinions or you've got a different method of choosing a game or how you go through that process, let us know.
Yep.
Because we'd always be interested to hear.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't. The thing is, for all of our waffling and faffling about, there are still many different issues that can arise when choosing a game that David didn't have to face. The miniatures, for example, you know, he was happy. All the miniatures were from the same company. He didn't have any issues with quality. You know, it's not as if one was a 3D printed game and the other was a bought off the shelf game. They were all the same, either a mix of hard plastic and resin. You know,
yeah, no metal in sight.
Yeah, and all of these things are, you know, crop up. We've literally covered less than half of it, I imagine. So get in the comments down below. What are all of those other decision points? What are all of those little things that you go through with your mental checklist when you're like, do I want game A or do I want game B? Just let us know. Right, I think that about wraps it up. It's a good night from me.
Sorry, what was that, mate? Because you cut in and out for me.
Did I? Oh.
Yeah, you really did. I don't know what happened. It might just be me, but...
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll repeat it then. It's a good night from me.
And it's a night from me.
See you
Have a good one.
See you next week, everybody.
Bye, boys and girls.